She thought he was just a lost farmer in the fields. Little did she know he was the wealthy owner of... Emily Thompson gripped the steering wheel of her old pickup truck tightly, feeling the weight of another overdue bill on the passenger seat. The 30-acre farm she had inherited from her father was on the verge of being lost, and she no longer knew what to do to save it. That's when she spotted a lone figure walking down the dirt road under the relentless midday sun. The man wore simple clothes, a worn-out straw hat, and carried only a backpack. Emily slowed down, recognizing the desperation of someone who had been walking for hours with no destination. "Need a ride?" she called through the open window. The stranger hesitated for a moment before approaching. He was a man around 40, his face sunburned and his hands clearly calloused from hard labor. "Are you sure, ma'am?" he asked in a tired voice. "Of course. Where are you headed?" "Looking for work on the farms around here. Anything will do." Emily opened the passenger door without a second thought. Something about the simplicity of this man touched her deeply. Maybe it was because she was also struggling, or simply the kindness her late husband had always taught her about helping others. "I'm Emily. And you?" "Robert Williams. But you can call me Rob." "Nice to meet you, Rob." As they drove down the dusty road, Emily discreetly observed her passenger. He looked out the window with unusual focus, as if studying every detail of the landscape. Occasionally, he commented on the soil type or the quality of the pastures they passed. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now, back to the story. "Do you know much about farming?" Emily asked curiously. "A bit. I've worked on plenty of farms over the years." "What a coincidence. I have a small property nearby, but it's going through some tough times." Rob turned to her with genuine interest. "What kind of trouble?" Emily sighed deeply. She usually didn't open up to strangers, but there was something comforting about this man's presence. "Irrigation problems, soil that doesn't produce like it used to, debts piling up. My husband passed 3 years ago, and ever since, everything seems to go wrong. I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you. It's hard managing everything alone. My daughter Jessica helps sometimes, but she's only 17 and more interested in leaving this place than saving the farm." Rob stayed silent for a few minutes, absorbing every word. When Emily pointed to the entrance of her property, he asked to be let out right there. "Want me to drop you at the gate?" "No need, Mrs. Emily. I'll keep looking for work." "Wait a minute." Emily stopped the truck and turned off the engine. "What if I told you I have a job for you?" The man looked at her in surprise. "You don't know me. Hiring a stranger could be risky. My instincts rarely steer me wrong. Besides, I really need help, and you need work. Seems like a win-win to me." After a brief hesitation, Rob agreed. Emily took him to the main house, a simple but well-kept building surrounded by a garden she tended lovingly, despite all the hardships. "Jessica," she called as they entered, "come meet our new worker." A 17-year-old brunette appeared in the kitchen doorway, clearly annoyed at being interrupted. "Mum, you hired someone without even asking me," Jessica asked, eyeing Rob up and down with suspicion. "Jessica, mind your manners. This is Rob." "Nice to meet you, Jessica," he said, extending his hand. The young woman ignored the greeting and turned to her mother. "Mum, can we talk in private?" Emily asked Rob to wait on the porch while she followed her daughter to the kitchen. "Have you lost your mind?" Jessica whispered. "You brought a complete stranger to work here. What if he's a thief? What if he's dangerous?" "Jessica, stop this. The man needs work and we need help. What we need is to sell this property and leave this place. You keep fooling yourself into thinking you can save it. This land belonged to your grandfather, to your father. It's our history. A history of failure. Look around, Mom, we're broke." The argument was interrupted by a soft knock on the door. Rob had approached respectfully. "Sorry to interrupt, but I noticed you have a serious problem with the irrigation system. If you'll allow me, I can take a look." Jessica rolled her eyes, but Emily was immediately intrigued. "You know about irrigation?" "A little. From the pipes coming out of the house, I can tell there's a major leak." The two women followed him to the side of the house. where there was indeed a mud puddle they hadn't noticed before. Rob crouched down and examined the pipes with obvious expertise. The problem is here. The main pipe is cracked. That's why you're losing so much water, and the pressure must be low across the whole property. Exactly, Emily exclaimed. How did you know? Experience. With the right materials, I can fix this today. Jessica crossed her arms, still suspicious. And how much will you charge for this? Nothing more than the food and place to sleep your mother already offered. For the rest of the afternoon, Rob worked on repairing the irrigation with a skill that even impressed Jessica. He knew techniques that seemed almost artisanal, but were extremely effective. Where did you learn to do this? Emily asked, watching him work. Here and there, every farm teaches you something different. That evening, during the simple dinner Emily prepared, Rob made several observations about the property that showed deep knowledge of agriculture and farm management. The soil here has excellent potential. You just need a few specific adjustments. What adjustments? Emily asked, interested. First, the acidity is too high. You'd need to lime it. Second, the crop rotation could be improved. And third, there's a natural spring right there. He pointed to a specific spot on the property. That could solve your water problems for good. Jessica looked at him skeptically. How could you possibly know there's a spring there? Signs in the vegetation, the lay of the land, things you learn to recognize over time. In that first week, Rob proved every one of his claims. The spring was exactly where he had pointed, and clearing it brought abundant water to the property. The soil adjustments he suggested began showing impressive results. It's almost miraculous, Emily remarked to Jessica as they watched the first green sprouts in a field that had been dry for months. Or he knows more about this land than he's letting on, Jessica murmured, still suspicious. The transformation of the property didn't go unnoticed in the area. Edward Wilson, foreman of the large neighboring farm, showed up one hot afternoon with an offer from his boss. Mrs. Emily, Mr. Anthony wants to buy your property. He's offering a fair price. I'm not interested in selling, Mr. Wilson. You should think it over. Things haven't been easy for small producers around here. Rob, who was fixing a nearby fence, discreetly moved closer to listen. What exactly is the offer? Emily asked. $80,000 in cash. It's a good amount for a property this size. This property is worth much more than that, Rob Williams interjected calmly. Edward Wilson looked at him with irritation. And who are you to give your opinion on business that isn't yours? I'm just someone who knows the true value of land. $80,000 is a ridiculous amount for 30 acres with its own spring and top-quality soil. Listen here, farmhand. Excuse me, Rob interrupted, his voice remaining calm but firm. I believe the decision belongs to Mrs. Emily. Emily Thompson was impressed by how Rob handled the situation. There was authority in his voice, a confidence that didn't match his simple appearance. Mr. Wilson, I appreciate the offer, but I don't intend to sell. You'll regret that decision, the foreman grumbled before leaving. That evening, Rob called Emily for a private conversation on the porch. Mrs. Emily, you need to be careful. This buyout offer doesn't sit right with me. Why do you say that? Properties in the area aren't being sold at such low prices by chance. Someone's playing a much bigger game here. Emily felt a chill. There was something in the way Rob spoke that suggested knowledge far beyond simple farming. Have you been through something like this before? Rob hesitated for a long moment. Let's just say I've seen similar situations. What matters now is strengthening your position. How much do you owe the bank? $50,000. And what's the deadline? 6 months. That's enough time if we do things right. In the following weeks, Rob implemented changes on the property with near impossible efficiency. He introduced sustainable farming techniques Emily had never seen, organized production to utilize every inch of land, and even found ways to drastically cut operating costs. How do you know all this? Emily asked one morning, watching him explain crop rotation to Jessica like a college professor. Life teaches a lot to those who pay attention, he replied evasively. Jessica, who had initially resisted any involvement with farm work, began taking an interest in the methods Rob taught. There was something fascinating about how he turned complex problems into simple, elegant solutions. Why didn't you ever have your own farm? She asked during a work break. Sometimes life takes us down different paths than we planned. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The cryptic answer only deepened Jessica's curiosity. She started observing Rob more closely and noticed inconsistencies. His hands, though calloused, had well-kept nails. His teeth were perfect, clearly the result of expensive dental work. And strangest of all, she occasionally overheard him speaking fluent English on the phone. "Mom, there's something off about Rob," Jessica said one night. "What do you mean?" "He knows too much, speaks languages, understands technology, knows about laws. That's not normal for an ordinary farmhand." "Jessica, you're being prejudiced. Simple people can have diverse knowledge." "Mom, this morning I heard him on the phone speaking perfect English. What farmhand speaks like that?" Emily grew thoughtful. It was true, Rob displayed impressive knowledge for someone supposedly only experienced in farm work. But at the same time, he had completely turned the property's fortunes around. 3 months after Rob's arrival, the farm was unrecognizable. The fields were lush with diverse crops, the irrigation system worked perfectly, and even a small organic garden had been set up for direct sales in the city. That's when Edward appeared again, this time accompanied by a man in a suit and tie. "Mrs. Emily, this is Mr. Henry, the lawyer for Mr. Anthony. They've come to make a new offer." The lawyer introduced himself formally and opened a folder full of documents. "Mrs. Thompson, my client is willing to increase the offer to $120,000. It's a very generous amount. I've already said I don't intend to sell. You should reconsider. Sometimes those who don't accept good offers end up losing everything." Rob, who was nearby, approached the group. "Can I see those documents?" he asked calmly. "And who are you?" the lawyer replied disdainfully. "Someone interested in understanding the legal terms of this offer." To everyone's surprise, Rob began examining the papers with clear legal knowledge. He asked technical questions that visibly unsettled the lawyer. "This clause here is irregular," Rob pointed out, "and this one violates current environmental legislation." The lawyer tried to retrieve the documents, but Rob continued. "Besides, the property valuation is completely underestimated. With the spring and recent improvements, this land is worth at least $300,000. "You have no authority to assess anything," the lawyer snapped. "I know enough to spot an attempt to deceive an honest widow." The argument quickly heated up. Edward made veiled threats while the lawyer threatened to sue Rob for interfering in private business. Emily watched everything, impressed by the knowledge her employee displayed. After the unwanted visitors left, she confronted Rob. "You're going to explain how you know so much about laws and property valuation." Rob took a deep breath. "I studied law many years ago. I never practiced, but I kept the knowledge." "Why didn't you ever mention it?" "Because it belongs to a life I left behind." Jessica, who had been listening in hiding, stepped out of her hiding spot. "What life? And why did you leave it behind?" Rob looked at the 2 women who had become important in his life. He knew the time had come to reveal at least part of the truth. "My family owned rural properties, very large ones, but I lost everything because of personal matters." "What kind of matters?" Jessica pressed. "I'd rather not go into details. What matters is that I'm here now helping you." That night, Jessica couldn't sleep. She decided to investigate on her own and found Rob on the porch, speaking quietly on the phone. Hiding, she managed to overhear part of the conversation. "I know what you want, but I'm not coming back. No, I haven't changed my mind. Leave things as they are." The call was clearly tense, and Jessica realized there were much deeper secrets in Rob's life than she had imagined. The next day, she confronted her mother with her suspicions. "Mom, you need to let this man go." "Why? He saved our property. He's lying about who he is. Yesterday, I overheard a strange call. There are people looking for him." "Jessica, you're exaggerating." "Mom, what if he brings trouble to us? What if dangerous people are after him?" Emily found herself torn. On one hand, Rob had completely turned the property's fortunes around. On the other, there was no denying the mysteries in his past. The situation grew even more complicated when the bank sent an urgent notification. The deadline for the debt payment had been reduced to just 3 weeks due to a change in loan conditions. "This is impossible," Emily exclaimed. "They can't just change the terms like this." Rob examined the documents, and his expression darkened. "They sure can, if someone's pulling strings behind the scenes. Mrs. Emily, someone really wants to take your property from you." But who would do that? Someone with a lot of money and influence. Jessica panicked. "Mum, do you see now? Powerful people are involved in this. What if it's because of him?" She pointed at Rob. "Jessica, this has nothing to do with me," he said calmly. "How can you be so sure?" Rob hesitated. He knew he was dangerously close to the moment when he'd have to reveal the whole truth. That same week, other small landowners in the area sought out Emily. They were all facing the same problem: shortened deadlines, pressure to sell, lowball offers for their land. "It's a conspiracy," said Mrs. Margaret, their closest neighbor. "Someone wants to buy up this whole area for peanuts." "But why?" Emily asked. "Must be some big project," speculated Mr. Jack, another neighbor. "Maybe a mall, a factory, who knows?" Rob listened silently, but Jessica noticed he looked deep in thought. That night, she discreetly followed him when he left for one of his evening walks. To her surprise, he went to a high point on the property and observed the entire area with binoculars she'd never seen before. "What are you doing?" she asked, stepping out from behind a tree. Rob startled, but quickly regained his composure. "Just admiring the view." "With binoculars? At night?" "Jessica, you shouldn't be following me. And you shouldn't be lying to us. Who are you, really?" The confrontation was interrupted by the sound of approaching cars. 3 vehicles with tinted windows stopped at the property's entrance. Rob grabbed Jessica's arm. "Go back to the house, now." "Why? Who are these people?" "Jessica, please, just go home and stay with your mother." The urgency in his voice frightened her. Jessica ran back to the house while Rob walked down the hill to meet the visitors. Inside, she found Emily awake, also worried about the strange cars. "Mum, something's really wrong here." They watched through the window as Rob spoke with the occupants of the cars. The conversation lasted nearly an hour, and when the vehicles finally left, he stood in the road for a long time. When he finally returned to the house, Emily and Jessica waited for him in the kitchen. "I think you both deserve an explanation," he said, sitting down heavily. "Who were those men?" Emily asked. "People from my past." "What kind of past?" Jessica pressed. Rob took a deep breath, clearly struggling with the decision to reveal the truth. "My real name is Robert James Miller. I'm the heir to one of the biggest agricultural groups in the country." The kitchen fell completely silent. Emily and Jessica stared at him as if he were a stranger. "You're rich?" Jessica asked, disbelieving. "My family owns farms in 7 states, meatpacking plants, export companies. The Miller Agricultural Group is worth over $2 billion. Emily's legs felt weak. "Then why are you here? Why work on my small property?" "Because I ran from that life. 5 years ago, I found out my younger brother, who runs the business, was involved in practices I couldn't accept. He pressured small farmers, bought land for ridiculous prices by taking advantage of financial struggles, destroyed entire communities. And you?" "I tried to change things from the inside. When I couldn't, I just left. I gave up everything and decided to live a simple life, far from all that greed." Jessica exploded. "So you've been lying to us this whole time? Pretending to be a poor worker when you're a millionaire?" "I didn't pretend anything. I've worked honestly for every penny I've earned. Being born into a wealthy family doesn't define who I am. But you lied about your identity, because I knew you'd treat me differently if you knew the truth." Emily, who had been silent, finally spoke. "The men who came today, were they from your family?" "My brother found me. He wants me to go back to sign some important documents. If I don't return by the end of the month, he'll sell the entire group to an international corporation." "And you're going back?" Emily asked, pain in her voice. "I don't know. I spent 5 years trying to convince myself I could just ignore all of it. But if the group is sold, thousands of farm workers' families will lose their jobs." "So you're leaving?" Jessica said, more a statement than a question. "I don't want to go. These have been the happiest months of my life." Emily stood up from the table. "I need time to process all this." That night, none of the three could sleep. Emily spent hours on the porch gazing at the fields Rob had helped transform. Jessica stayed in her room, torn between anger at the betrayal and gratitude for what he'd done for them. And Rob walked the property, knowing it might be his last time. The next day, the tension in the house was palpable. Jessica barely spoke to Rob, while Emily maintained a cold politeness that hurt more than any shouting. Then came the worst possible news. The bank had accelerated the debt foreclosure process. They had just 1 week to pay the $50,000 or lose everything. "How can they do this?" Emily asked the manager over the phone. "Mrs. Thompson, there's been a change in credit policy. I'm very sorry." When she hung up, Emily broke down in tears. Jessica comforted her while Rob watched from a distance, clearly pained that he couldn't help without revealing more about his true financial situation. "Mom, maybe it's time to accept the sale offer," Jessica said softly. "With a week's notice, they'll offer even less now." That afternoon, as expected, Mr. Wilson arrived with the lawyer. "Mrs. Thompson, given the urgent circumstances, my client can offer $70,000 in cash." "70,000? You offered 120 last week." "Ah, but the situation has changed now. You're desperate. Take it or leave it." Rob, who had promised himself not to interfere, couldn't stay silent. "This is pure and simple extortion. You're still here," the lawyer laughed. "I thought you'd have left already after that little visit yesterday." The remark caught Emily's attention. How did the lawyer know about the visitors? "How do you know about the men who came here yesterday?" she asked. The lawyer realized he'd said too much. It was just a comment." "No, it wasn't. You knew they were coming." Emily's voice grew stronger. "You're working together." Mr. Wilson tried to control the situation. "Mrs. Thompson, you're upset. Let's focus on the offer." "No," she shouted. "You set all this up. The bank's pressure, the deadline changes, yesterday's visitors. It's all part of the same plan." Rob looked at her with admiration. Emily had connected the dots. "You're delusional," the lawyer said, but his nervousness was obvious. "Get off my property, now," Emily ordered. "You'll regret this." "I said get out." After the two men left, Emily turned to Rob. "Your family is behind all this, isn't it?" Rob lowered his head. "I suspected, but I wasn't sure." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I had no proof, and because I fell in love with you, with both of you, with this simple, honest life." Jessica, who had heard everything, ran to her room in tears. Emily stood looking at Rob, her heart torn between the love she felt for him and the pain of betrayal. "Can you stop this?" she asked. "I can, but I'd have to go back to a life I hate. And if you don't go back, they'll get your property one way or another, and you'll lose everything." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, Emily sank heavily into a chair. "How did we get to this point?" "Emily, I swear I never wanted this to happen. When I came here, I just wanted to work honestly and forget my past. I never imagined my brother would come after me. But he did. So now what? Now I have to make a decision, and so do you." That night, Jessica knocked on the door of the room where Rob was staying. "Can I come in?" "Of course." She sat on the edge of the bed, clearly wrestling with her emotions. "I hate you for lying to us." "I know. But I also know you saved our property, and you made my mother happy for the first time since my father passed away." Rob didn't answer, just waited for her to continue. "She's in love with you. You know that, right? And I'm in love with her. So what are you going to do?" "I don't know. If I go back, I can save your property and many others, but I'll have to live a life that suffocates me. And if you don't go back, you'll probably lose everything, and I'll carry that guilt for the rest of my life." Jessica was silent for a long time. "Can you tell me what your life was like before?" Rob sighed and began to talk about his privileged childhood, how he was raised to take over the family business, and the moment he discovered his brother's questionable practices. "I tried to change things, Jessica, but there was too much money involved, too many interests. My brother said I was naive, that the business world didn't run on sentimentality. So you ran away." I didn't run. I left. There's a difference. What's the difference? People who run have no choice. I chose a different life. But now your choice is affecting other people. Jessica's words hit him hard. He had thought that by leaving the corporate world, he wouldn't hurt anyone else. But now he saw that his absence also had consequences. The next day, the three of them barely spoke. The tension was almost palpable as each wrestled with their own dilemmas. Then, an unexpected visitor arrived. A well-dressed man about 35 stepped out of an imported car and walked toward the main house. "Good afternoon. I'm looking for Robert Williams." Jessica, who was on the porch, eyed him suspiciously. "And you are?" "Richard Miller, his brother." Jessica's heart raced. This was the man behind all their suffering. "Rob," she called, not taking her eyes off the visitor. Rob appeared at the door and froze when he saw his brother. "Richard, how did you find me?" "It wasn't hard. You always had this romantic streak of helping the needy. What do you want? For you to come home and take on your responsibilities?" "My responsibilities are here now." Richard laughed dismissively. "With these people?" "Robert, you're the heir to an empire. You have obligations to thousands of employees, to shareholders, and to small producers like them," Rob interrupted, pointing to Emily, who had joined the group. "Ah, yes. The famous compassion for the weak. Robert, you've always been like this, since we were kids. And you've always been greedy, since we were kids." The exchange between the brothers revealed a long history of disagreements and conflicts. Richard represented everything Rob had rejected: unscrupulous ambition, success at any cost, contempt for the less fortunate. "Robert, you have 1 week to come back and sign the documents transferring the presidency. If you don't do it, I'll sell everything to the Americans. And if I come back, then you'll have full control of operations. You can implement your socialist policies as much as you want." "They're not socialist policies. They're ethical practices." "Whatever you say. The point is, you'll have the power to make the changes you've always wanted." Emily watched the conversation, feeling her world crumble. It was obvious Rob would have to choose between her and his family, and she knew what the right choice for him would be. "What about the debts on this property?" Rob asked. "What about them? You orchestrated the bank's pressure to force me back." Richard smiled. "Maybe, but it worked, didn't it? You're despicable. I'm efficient. There's a difference." Jessica, who had been listening to everything, exploded. "You two stand there arguing philosophy while my mother is about to lose everything." "Jessica," Emily tried. "No, Mom. I'm tired of this situation." She turned to Richard. "You want your brother back? Pay off the debts on our property." "Jessica," Rob exclaimed. "It's fair," the young woman continued. "You created the problem. You fix it." Richard looked at her with interest. "You've got spirit, kid. How much is the debt?" $50,000. "That's a ridiculous amount. I can take care of it with one call." "Then do it," Jessica challenged. "Jessica, no," Emily said. "We don't want charity." "It's not charity, Mom. It's justice." Richard took out his phone and made a quick call. In less than 5 minutes, the problem that had tormented Emily for months was resolved. "Done. The debt is cleared. Now, Robert, are you coming with me?" Rob looked at Emily, then at Jessica, and finally at his brother. "I need time to think. You have until tomorrow morning. After that, I'm leaving, and you'll never get this chance again." After Richard left, the three of them stood in complete silence. The financial problem was solved, but the emotional one was just beginning. "You're leaving," Emily said. It wasn't a question. "Emily, you are, and it's the right thing. You have bigger responsibilities than us." "There's no responsibility bigger than love." "Yes, there is. You could save hundreds of families like ours." Jessica watched them, seeing the sacrifice both were willing to make for each other. "What if there was a third option?" she asked. "What option?" Rob asked. "What if you went back, but took us with you?" "Jessica, Mom, think about it. You're a smart woman with experience in agriculture. You could help him change things from inside the company." Rob and Emily exchanged glances, considering the possibility. "It would be very different from the life you know," he said. "But we'd be together," Emily replied. That night they talked until dawn about possibilities, challenges, fears, and hopes. When the sun rose, a decision had been made. Richard returned as promised, finding the three of them waiting for him on the porch. "So, Robert, I'll come back, but with conditions." "What conditions?" "Emily and Jessica come with me. Emily will be the family farming consultant for the group, and you'll be removed from all operational decisions." Richard laughed. "You can't remove me, I'm a partner." "Yes, I can. I own 60% of the shares, remember?" The smile vanished from Richard's face. "You wouldn't do that." "Try me." The two brothers stared at each other for a long moment. Finally, Richard gave in. "Fine, but I hope you know what you're doing." "I know exactly." A week later, Emily was in a meeting room in New York City, presenting a sustainable farming project for small producers. Jessica had enrolled in a private school and was adjusting to city life. And Rob, for the first time in 5 years, was back at the helm of the family business. The changes weren't easy. Many employees resisted the new policies. Some shareholders questioned the profitability of the social projects, but gradually the company began to transform. The Miller Agricultural Group became a pioneer in social responsibility, offering microloans to small producers, technical training programs, and guaranteed purchase of their crops at fair prices. Emily discovered she had a natural talent for business when applied with ethics. Her simple, practical ideas revolutionized several of the company's operations. Jessica thrived in the educational environment of the big city, but never forgot her rural roots. A year later, during a visit to Emily's old property, now a training center for sustainable agriculture, Rob made a request. "Marry me?" he asked, kneeling in the same field where they had first met. "Only if it's a simple ceremony," Emily replied, tears of joy streaming down her face. "Whatever you want. And only if you promise never to lie about who you are again." "I promise. But you have to promise me something too." "What?" "That you'll never let me forget where I came from and why I chose to stay." The wedding took place in the small village church where it all began. Richard surprisingly was there and seemed genuinely happy for his brother's happiness. "You've changed," he told Rob after the ceremony. "How so?" "You're more complete, happier. That's what happens when you find your true family." "And me, am I part of that family?" Rob looked at his brother, competitive, ambitious, but deep down, as lost as he himself had once been. "You always were. We just needed to find a way to live with our differences." 2 years later, the Miller Agricultural Group had become an international success story in sustainable agribusiness. Emily led an entire division dedicated to small producers. Jessica studied environmental engineering and already worked part-time at the company, and Rob had found the perfect balance between his business responsibilities and his personal values. Emily's old property had become a symbol of this transformation. What was once a small farm struggling to survive was now a center of excellence visited by farmers from across the country. During one such visit, a young farmer remarked to Emily, "You're a lucky woman. You found the perfect man." Emily smiled, watching Rob explain irrigation techniques to a group of visitors. "I didn't find the perfect man," she replied. "I found the right man. And the difference is, the right man chooses to be better every day. He doesn't come ready-made." Jessica, now 20 and graduated, had become one of the company's top executives. One Saturday afternoon, as the family gathered on the porch of Emily's old house, she made an observation. "Have you noticed our story sounds like a soap opera plot?" "Why do you say that?" Rob asked. "Mysterious man, secret identity, true love overcoming social differences." Emily laughed. "The difference is, in real life, the happy ending has to be built every day. And are you building it?" "We're trying," Rob replied, holding his wife's hand. Richard, who now visited the family regularly, had found his own path. After the company's restructuring, he opened a consultancy focused on turning conventional businesses into socially responsible enterprises. You know what amazes me most about this story, he remarked during one family visit. What? Emily asked. How two people can change not just their own lives, but an entire company, a community, a way of thinking. It wasn't just the two of us, Rob corrected. It was the whole family, including you. Even after I caused so much trouble in the beginning, especially because of that, your mistakes forced us to make the right choices. 5 years after that first meeting on the dusty road, the Miller Agricultural Group had become a global leader in sustainable farming. Thousands of small farmers had benefited from the company's programs, and the story of Emily and Rob had become an example of how true love could overcome any difference. But for them, the greatest success wasn't in the company's numbers or the international recognition. It was in the little things, the breakfasts shared every morning, the evening walks around the property, Jessica's laughter as she told them about her university adventures. "Do you regret anything?" Emily asked Rob during one of those sunset walks. "Lying about who I was at first. Anything else? Taking 5 years to find you. And if we had met earlier, when you were still lost in the corporate world, I probably wouldn't have seen you. I was blind to what really mattered. And now I see everything clearly. I see that real wealth isn't in what you own, but in what you build, not in what you accumulate, but in what you share." Emily stopped and kissed him softly. "I love you, Robert Miller. And I love you, Emily Miller." "Miller? You're my wife. Your name is Miller now." "I prefer Emily Thompson Miller. I don't want to forget where I came from." "Whatever you say, my love." Jessica, watching her parents from a distance, smiled. She had found in their extended family not just financial security, but something far more valuable, an example of how true love could transform not just two people, but the world around them. That night, during dinner, Richard made an announcement. "I have news for you all." "Good or bad?" Jessica asked. "Good, very good. I've received an offer to expand our sustainable farming methods to other countries in Latin America." "Really?" Rob exclaimed. "The Global Bank wants to fund a pilot project. If it works, it could help millions of small farmers." Emily was moved. Seeing how one personal decision, to accept a stranger on the road, had turned into a force for large-scale social change was almost surreal. "Take it," she said. "This is what you were born to do." "You mean we," Rob corrected. "This is what we were born to do." The international expansion was a tremendous success. Within 3 years, the model developed by the Miller family was being implemented in 12 countries. Emily became an international speaker on family farming. Jessica founded an NGO focused on rural education, and Rob was named one of the most influential figures in global agriculture. But the most special moment came on a Sunday afternoon, 10 years after that first meeting. The family was gathered on the porch of Emily's old house when an unexpected group arrived. "Who are these people?" Jessica asked. They were representatives from dozens of rural communities across the United States, small farmers whose lives had been changed by the family's work. They had come to thank them in person. "Mrs. Emily," said an elderly woman, clearly emotional, "you saved our community. My grandchildren now have a future on the land." "Mr. Wilson," a young farmer said, "you taught us it's possible to make a profit without exploiting anyone." Miss Jessica, a girl of about 12, said, "I want to be an engineer like you when I grow up." The family was moved by the recognition, but the real gift came from the words of one of the region's oldest farmers. "Do you know what makes you different from other wealthy business people we've met?" "What?" asked Rob. "So you remember where you came from, and you never forgot where you want to go." That night, after the visitors had left, the family gathered for a simple dinner. Emily prepared the same kind of meal she had served Rob on his first night at the property. 10 years, she murmured, looking at her husband. 10 years, he repeated. Was it worth it? Every second. Jessica, now a grown woman, watched her parents affectionately. "Do you still love each other like you did on the first day?" "Even more," they answered in unison, sparking laughter around the table. "How is that possible?" Because we choose to love each other every day, Emily explained. Love isn't just a feeling, it's a decision. And because we grew together, Rob added, we didn't try to change each other but helped one another become better people. Richard, now a regular part of the family, raised his glass of wine. A toast to the craziest and most wonderful family I've ever known. Crazy why? Jessica asked, laughing. Because you proved it's possible to succeed without losing your soul, that it's possible to be rich without forgetting the poor, that it's possible to change the world by starting with yourself. And most of all, Emily added, the best things in life happen when you open your heart to strangers on the road. Rob smiled, remembering that day 10 years ago when an unknown woman stopped her truck to offer a ride to a lost man. Actually, he said, I don't think I was lost on that road. I was just finding my way home. And home, I've learned, isn't a place. It's the people we choose to love. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this story and where you're listening from. If you have something to share with us, leave your honest thoughts in the comments. Do you believe Emily made the right choice by trusting a stranger? We're eager to hear your opinion. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartwarming stories.